Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite our panelists to join me on stage for the debate on the impact on the ongoing blend between live events, entertainment, gaming, and media and digitality in the event industry. So I would like to invite Mr. Jambon to join me. And of course, we do have Marco as well. We have Tomas. We have Tomas van the Spiegel. And we have Philippe Ben Mohamed from We Are One World. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them up in the app that you could download on your iPhone. So I could start by singing because it's entertainment. Welcome and bienvenue, welcome, or bienvenuti. I'm not in cabaret, this is a panel discussion, but we are talking about events. So, Mr. Balich, we see there's a blend between events, and you talked about the ABBA Voyage. I went twice last year just because my kids wanted to see it again. And they asked to see it again this year, and they even want to sit closer and closer and closer to see the big stage. So it's really amazing. If you haven't been there yet, just go to London. It's really amazing. Now, we see that it's very important to blend different parts of our society. Now, as a creative director and producer of 20 Olympic ceremonies, how do you look upon this evolution? What are you expecting?
It's an interesting question, and again, I would like to underline that I completely embrace the message that Thomas Riedel did. We are promoters of something, culture. So whatever tool we use, I think is right, and we should use it extensively, but we should never forget about what we deliver. In whatever, even to an insurance company congress, whatever, just giving sizes of emotions, no? But whatever we do, we have to put something that is meaningful in what we do. Otherwise, it becomes plain. That's why I think the ABBA is successful, because it's for the new generation to enjoy something that belongs to the 80s culture, but in a way it's fun. And the trick there is the motion capture of them doing the little passes, but also the fact that in the screens, the lighting is exactly the one replicated live. So you have this window of lighting, and the effects are in the video, but also live. So that combination triggers really, and you forget that you are. So to me, I'm not a big gamer, but every sort of tool is useful as long as it serves the purpose of being meaningful. And again, as Thomas said, we can provide culture, and we as Europeans, we have the ownership of a very significant part of the culture of humanity. So I think we should be proud of that and be meaningful in what we do.
Thank you. Now, Philippe, I would like you to react on that just a little later, because first of all, I have to introduce you. You are the head of Metaverse at Tomorrowland. Now, explain to me, what is the job of the head of Metaverse at Tomorrowland?
So to what Marco mentioned in his talk earlier, a DJ behind the deck is much more than just a guy jumping around. It's it's a whole show that we create. So Tomorrowland is really known for creating this once-in-a-lifetime magical experience through the musical narrative to the visual narrative. If you come to one of our events, it's a whole show that we create. And this is always in touch with our ethos, which is live today, love tomorrow, unite forever. It's an ethos that overarches the physical event. It's also something that is happening very much online. And the job of the head of the metaverse is spotting that culture, making sure that you can facilitate that conversation that is going on online. Also creating meaningful and fun experiences for those people who want to be engaged with your brand online, such as creating digital festivals, which we did during COVID, and also popping up there where people expect us to pop up. So presence in games, for example, presence in other places, such as in Barcelona, where we recently launched an immersive experience, and making sure that people can engage throughout the full digital realm with your brand.
Okay, so now what do you think are the challenges of the event industry?
A lot of different challenges. I think the production of media is becoming something very obvious if you look around in this room only, like the amount of cameras, the amount of people that are making content. It's a very straightforward story today. The one thing that is a challenge is that all this content is costly to produce. And on the other side, you have a lot of people who are expecting that content to be free. A lot of different media channels, a lot of different social media channels. And having something that costs a lot of money versus having something that is consumed for free is a very huge challenge. It's also something that we saw during COVID. We produced our digital festivals, a heavy production. Back then, there was a need for a lot of new content, so we were able to do a pay-per-view where people would pay a ticket to come to your show. But then, as soon as COVID opened up again, a lot of content became free. YouTube became saturated with DJ sets. We wanted to continue our digital narrative, but had to reinvent the wheel. You know, how do you pay for that full production? How do you pay for that experience? So it's a constant evolution of making sure you can find a model that works. And I think to the point that a lot of people in this room have to constantly produce new content, it's also a big challenge to make sure that the business case works as well, and that you have enough headspace to actually produce something innovative and to come with new stories.
Okay, still work to be done.
Absolutely.
Now, Mr. van der Spiegel, more and more companies organize and develop digital applications. You are the CEO of Flanders Classics, which is a cycling event. So, what do you think of this evolution?
I think discussing business case, I think
Mike.
no mic.
No mic.
Here's one.
Should be okay. Thanks. Discussing business case, I think I come from the industry, which is sports, and then cycling in particular, which has the worst business case in the whole entertainment industry, because we organize events for millions of people every year, and they all come for free. So trying to be innovators is quite hard in our sport. We also operate on a very thin line between conserving heritage, and I liked what you both said, because we consider ourselves a little bit the protectors of our Flemish heritage, and we have to make sure cycling is probably the most important thing in certain periods of the year here in Flanders. We have to make sure that we preserve that heritage. At the same time, there's a demand in the market today to innovate, so it's a very thin line for us sometimes, and also, of course, the investments that go with that innovation sometimes in our industry are quite hard. At the same time, we see that the innovations that we have done over the past years when it comes to broadcast, but also when it comes to our virtual tour of Flanders during COVID, which was watched by tens of millions of people. You can see that there is a need in the market. So it's a very thin line, and we kind of are obliged to go with the flow because we don't have these, we can't afford to make these investments or to over innovate and chase some type of our public away that expects to see the heritage and to see the traditions respected. So that's always a challenge, and I'm quite impressed to sit here today, and sometimes we're a little bit jealous of people that are operating in what we call a free market, because we're quite regulated as well by international governing bodies, which is a competitive disadvantage to our other entertainment industries. At the same time, sports has a lot of emotion, and sports has another USP, which is the live element that a lot of other people in the industry, in the entertainment industry, don't have. So we have our let's say our share of the cake that is guaranteed because of the live element, and it's exciting, and we see other sports that do innovate way more than we do, but we try to keep up.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Riedel, I know you didn't want to talk about technology, but I'm going to ask you a question about technology. It plays a crucial role in the heart of the entertainment and sports industry, of course, and you provided communication technology for the Olympics, Formula One, the Super Bowl. Could you explain a little bit more why it's so important for those industries?
Well, I mean, the need of the technology is pretty obvious. I mean, if you see like I have a microphone here and you want to hear me, so technology is has a function. Or basically, we don't want to sit in the dark, so some spotlights are needed as well. But I think if you want to do a more meaningful job in that field, then it's more than just put a stage, some spotlights, and a microphone. And it's really about thinking, how can we add something to what happens on stage? And really, how can we influence a format? I mean, I'm involved in a large sailing event. It's a sailing competition called SailGP. And it happens to be that I'm also the owner of the German team in that competition. And I'm saying that because I'm kind of on two ends. You know, I sit on the table of the owners of these 10 nation teams, and also as a partner supplying technology like the onboard cameras and the radio technology and such. And there was a discussion I got basically on the owner's end, and it was about how can we get the coaches which follow these sailing boats in motorboats on the water. So the series says powered by nature, so it is about a sustainability story as well. And then you have a motorboat for each of these sailing yachts and 700 horsepower in the back. That doesn't work very well, to be honest. And so they said, how can we get rid of them? And I thought of that for a moment and I said, well, technology might be able to help here, because what do these guys do? They talk to the sailors, they have communications, yes, and I knew whether this is on a boat, this guy, or he's on land, no problem. He sees what he sees when he goes next to the boat, but isn't it even better if we give him like a screen with like all the cameras from like the 2 helicopters we have, from drones, from other camera boats, and I just suggested that. You know, the funny answer was that, yeah, we know that would work, but the coaches will probably say that we've always done it like this, and we don't want to have any change. I mean, this is like, especially in very traditional sports, you probably know these answers. And you know that I just said, well, no, the German coach will test it. Well, I didn't even ask him. That's the beauty of owning a team, right? And he tested that, and the best thing was that the American coach from the American team, obviously, he didn't want to give the sunshine to the German guy and said, I'm testing that as well. So we had 2 teams who tested that. And then they tested that at the event in Los Angeles, and after only 1 session, they already said, this is night and day. And they were not about the sustainability part, getting rid of the boats, but they were about, well, this is so much better for the sports. It helps us. The coaching is so much better. So I said, oh, that sounds like a win-win. Really, we move forward, get our footprint down, get rid of these boats, and the sports gets better. Then I thought, and how can we make it even better with technology? Well, why don't we put all these guys, instead of having them hidden in like the team bases in their containers, put them in one spot? It's a little bit like a pit wall in Formula One, you know? And we did that. And we had like these guys lined up. And even so, it's typically just one guy. I said, let's make 3 spots per team. And what happened? It's like, you know, you had the coach, the team CEO, maybe a guest line up. And we got emotions because we put some cameras around, and the television guys freaked out because they said, now on water we have like one overtaking the other, and now I have a picture of like one coach being sad and the other one being happy. And so you see a third win in that story. And if I have that 30 seconds, there's a 4th one in that, because again, I got into one of those meetings between owners, and, you know, sometimes people are in this mood of bitching and whining and saying, you know, all these hospitality tickets, they are so expensive, $1,250 per day, and, you know, I can't even drink that much champagne. And I said, yeah, well, but it's not about the champagne and it's not about the food. Of course, if the price is high, it needs to be good. But we need to create an experience which money can't buy. And then people are happy to be there. And I said, why don't we take all these coaches with that all set up and just put it in the middle of that hospitality? And we did. and everyone loved it, and no one discussed about the price of these tickets anymore. So, and I mean, yes, sorry, was a long example, but that one really explains how technology can help in lots of these situations and really develop formats.
Thank you. And I think there was a question from the audience, so I hope we answered that, why we need technology. All right. Mr. Jambon, we are here and you are surrounded by global players. Now we have a lot of SMEs in our audience. How are you going to get the small events, the congresses, maybe sometimes a little boring congresses, etc., on board?
Yeah, I think it's a question of two phases. The Flemish government is just at the beginning of having really attention for the entertainment sector. It started. There's one advantage of COVID. It started in COVID, where we sit together with the sector to see how can we help you through the thing, and so that got our attention. And we have the big players in Flanders talking, as I explained, about how can we build an ecosystem around it in Flanders. And then, of course, in the second phase, the smaller companies. It's like in our global economy, we are an SME country, Flanders is an SME country, but you need the big players to have a future for the SMEs. And I think it's a little bit the same in the entertainment sector. You need these big guys, but from the other hand, innovation, new ideas come often from very small startup companies. And I see it as our job to link this together and to facilitate also from a fiscal point of view, to facilitate this innovation, to facilitate research and development, often done by small companies, and bring them together in ecosystems.
Now, Mr. Balich, teamwork is very important. I think we talked about it earlier this morning. We should all work together as an industry, but how can we do that? What's best?
What's next?
What's best?
What's best?
And maybe what's next, yes.
Well, just out of this panel, I was thinking, while Tomas was mentioning about what they did, the improvement, maybe to create on the Fiandre, we call it Giro delle Fiandre.
Lo so.
Exactly. How to implement that with a super broadcast system for which each bicycle has the face of the thing and of the cyclist sweating and bitching and the coaches and all that. That could be something that would really create much more than just the motorcycle in front taking the thing. And that is something that teamwork could provide. Or just going back to you, I didn't want to be disrespectful about DJs, but what I think is people come to Tomorrowland. I have 4 adolescents would love to go to Tomorrow for the experience. If you substitute Tiesto and James Hype with XY and whoever, and Thomas Riedel doing DJ, people would come anyway for the experience. So what it would be the teamwork in this panel would be if you replicate with technology in Barcelona, in the fair of where they do whatever, just big fair, replicate with 1,000 people the same music, technology-wise, because it's all about the experience. So again, I think teamwork is essential. We have to work together. Even in my field, which is big institutional ceremonies, is never a one-man band. It's always a group of people, 5 to 10 to 15, that in a way provide bits and pieces of the puzzle, and the puzzle is complex. The more complex is the puzzle, more interesting is the thing. So to me, there is no one genius, and then the rest is people obeying, is a huge effort, which peaks in every direction. This panel alone can trigger an upgrade for all of us, each one of us, minister included, to elevate what we do daily. So this is something that I believe on.
Even crossing borders and keeping our own identities?
Whoa. Yes, absolutely. I again, what Thomas Riedel said, I think the peculiarity of us European is that we need to be one united force in one way, retaining whatever specific language, culture, just the art. Each of our countries, each of our region has. In Sicily, there is a different sort of art and culture and food from, say, Tuscany than Lombardy. So imagine in a Flemish country has totally different from some other region of Belgium or France or Luxembourg or Germany, the land in Germany, Hamburg versus Munich, Bavarian, and we should retain that identity, yet we should sort of being promoting overall what are our roots, which are great, and be solid against, the unified push from China and the sort of the beautiful but sort of lame, in a way, standardized culture that comes from the States. So this is my take on that.
Mr. Jambon, you believe in unifying the sector, maybe the transversal approach?
Yeah, of course, transversal approach. I think the Event Confederation was founded during the COVID, and it gave us the opportunity with the government to sit together with a limited number of people, but representing the total sector. And when this works, when the Confederation can unite all the different players in the sector, it's much more easy to develop policies to serve the sector. And when we have to play with to talk with every player in the sector, it would be a huge challenge. But it has worked during the pandemic, and I think afterwards also, because the sector is really the people we are talking to is really representative for the sector, and it helps. And you see this in all industry, retail. It works like that. So people who represent the sector, and then you can develop the policy that is adequate for the sector.
Now, I know one of your colleagues said that we needed a minister of events.
Of events, yeah.
Are you applying for the job after the election?
First have the elections, but I don't support the idea of having a minister in Belgium, a minister for the events, because the competences are so layered in this country that you would have ministers at every level. I don't so think that having more ministers in a government, it has not the support of the population. On the contrary, they want less ministers. But and of course, event is in sports, in culture, in heritage. You have different. But what we have for the moment, that is Event Flanders. It's and we have to force this administration to make a real administration, because they can gather across all the levels and across all the competence they can gather for having really strong administration also on events. Because more ministers means more rules, means more reglementation, means more paperwork, and I think we have to go the other way around.
Thomas, do you agree?
I'm grateful for Event Flanders, that's for sure. I think the fact that tourism and sports have been so nicely connected over the past years has helped us a lot. We're also grateful, I think, for Event Confederation. I've seen it. I've always been skeptical towards industry players that try to be lobby organs, but I think during the pandemic we have seen very much how useful this type of organization can be, and I'm very tempted also, of course, by the idea, because we do have crazy competences here in Flanders and Belgium, world-class companies, and the transversality of having joint projects would make all of us better. So I really believe in that, and I think we as a player within the sports industry, we would love. We've had discussions with Tomorrowland in the past, because I think cycling and Tomorrowland are two of our very strong export products right now, and how we could eventually work together in the future. Because I believe, and I love your idea, Marco, but I want to go a step further. I think we're not that far away from from me in my living room being able to race in the real race and looking left and right and not just seeing the riders in the broadcast but also racing against them in my living room. I think we're not that far off from those types of experiences, and if we could put all of the competences that exist in the market today together, I think it's not that hard to create that product. So, and that goes for cycling, but that goes for a lot of other forms of entertainment as well. So we need to keep pushing the gas and keep improving and keep developing.
Maybe you can ask Thomas Riedel to buy a cycling club, and that would accelerate.
That could be a start.
But we had Torwart Werchter, and there was also a cycling tour that was made by Torwart Werchter.
Yeah. I was still a kid, but I remember.
All right. Now, Philippe, what do you expect in terms of new things and evolutions? You are now already in the metaverse. Most of us are not yet. So what do you expect?
I think there are a couple of big changes. On the one side, you have the way that people are consuming new media. It's very different from what it used to be. There are a lot of new different channels that also decide which content thrives and which content fails. The whole format of content is changing. The way it's snackable is also changing. On the other side, there's also a big change happening on the way you can produce that content. A lot of platforms are being more available. You have a lot of different opportunities to actually go and experiment with different formats. Games are becoming more available. Video content is becoming much easier to produce. So I think the biggest change that is happening and will be happening is finding the right opportunities and handing that knowledge over to the event industry, making sure the event industry is connected to the right people so they are able to actually get some headspace and actually do some experiments within that whole category of new and innovative content.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
You know, if I think of the end game and like a full virtual world, I mean, do you think that end game is like there is only a virtual world and maybe it's connected to some brains outside, then you are in this avatar kind of world? Is that a scenario? Is that something we aim for? Or is that the end game? Or do you think there is always a hybrid and we humans as we are still also important and involved? And really, I'm not sure about it. So I'm really asking that as an open question.
I think that's an interesting one. I do wish there's a scenario where that's possible, because the thing that we're aiming for, of course, is people are super passionate about the event they're attending. You know, they go to an event, they witness something, whether it's sports, whether it's music, they witness something that touches them, that makes them emotional, and they really want to come back, tell all their friends. They become ambassadors of your brand, and they really witness something that is super important to them. I think for us, the goal is how can we extend that story on the digital side? You know, how can we recreate something? How can we create something new that sort of tells that story or brings that emotion on a digital platform? Yeah. If at some point we are able to bring that same emotion to people, or bring that same togetherness, or that same thing that triggered them to become so passionate about a topic, then I think it's sort of a competitor of what you've been doing physically. I don't think the actual physical thing can be completely replaced with the exact same emotion on a digital realm. I do think you can create something that is as meaningful as the experience that you have in the real physical world.
So kind of the second best to the real world.
Who knows? Maybe the best, but I think that will take some time to.
Because if I think I'm handicapped, I sit in a wheelchair, or whatever, and I can't dance in front of the stage. But basically, in such a virtual world, I could have that feeling dancing with other people, and it is like real. So I think there's lots in that, but at the same time, I think we always need to wonder where's the balance in that. Absolutely, but I'm really, it's like when I start thinking of that, your brain goes in those directions. So thanks for the answer.
Thank you. Now, I would like to take a question from the audience, because Mr. Balich, you are here, so we want to pick your brain. Can you walk us through your creative process on such big-scale events, and how do you keep in touch with technology?
typically, for example, now I'm starting to do the creativity for the opening ceremony of Milano Cortina, which is the next Winter Olympics, 2026. And you gather around the table people from design, people from movement, choreographers and such, people from music, producers or sort of experts, people from sports, which in a way introduce that kind of challenge and vibe to reflect the respect for the athletes, and a scriptwriter, typically, that loves the sports, and some creative directors of different background, whether it's film or or opera, and you put them together in a room and you start to say, what shall we do? And you start to walk them through the path of, you look at the president and the previous ceremonies, and then you look at moments in life which trigger sort of the emotion, and then you start to put sort of pillars of the ceremony of content in black and white. You start to put that in writing, and once you have about 20 pillars, then you start to develop a trajectory of a ceremony, and that is it's a ceremony of that level is a typical 2 years process. The beginning 6 months for ideas, 6 months for budgeting and and approvals and various approvals, 6 months of prototyping, samples of music, sample of costume, etc., and 6 months of rehearsals. And the fact, the real waste is that you work 2 years and then it's done in 2 hours. And so the goal there is to have someone who remember 3 or 4 strong images and got goosebumps from that. In a way that the same of whatever cycling, effort, if you have some, moment, you organize the entire sort of length, but then there are 3 or 4 moments that really touches and go in the media all around the world, the same. So that is the process.
Thank you. And how do you keep in touch with technology? Is that something that you follow up?
Usually flying, for example, which is the big topic, no? Drones are kind of difficult to run in a stadium because of security reason. So flying is always the big. So in Torino 2006, we put a huge a guy from Riga who turned down an airplane propeller, and then we did the first flying on the thing. Now there are aerodrome everywhere, but that was the first time that it was. And it was very dangerous because those guys were very pioneer. If you would fell off the cone of air, it would have collapsed from 30 meters down. So we have mattresses everywhere, but still, it was very, very dangerous. Now everybody do these gravity sessions. So the idea is to find crazy people who do crazy stuff and try to talk to them into doing things. And for example, in Turkmenistan, where we go in very odd places, by the way. Turkmenistan is next between Afghanistan and Iran, just to, the beauty of, and Ashgabat. It was indoor Asian Games. So we did an entire segment of 7 minutes with projection and bikes and bicycles with LED on the wheels and on the frame, and it looked beautiful. And that was hiring a local guy that was head of the cycling team of Ashgabat, and then applying technology to that, and then resolving in a beautiful projection mapping with the bicycle, and really turned out. If you check on this, it was called Ashgabat 2000 something. It's Asian Indoor Games, no, Asian Games. So that is the kind of shortcuts that you make. And sorry, can I add another thing? every time, for example, the head of a committee expects you to take, for example, the torch relay into the space shuttle and all that, but that is too far and has been done already, okay? So the idea is try to connect something that is very obvious, but to hybridize your content with whatever is available close, not so far away. That's my suggestion. Don't try to talk to NASA and SpaceX for creating something huge. Talk to the local drone guy and challenge him to do something amazing with it.
Thank you. Final question for Mr. Jambon. Flanders is building now the Flanders Entertainment Valley. Now you want to broaden it, expand it, but how will you anchor that in policy for us?
Yeah, to allocate budgets for that. That's, I think, an anchor, because then next governments have to say, oh, no, we want to get rid of it, and it's a decision to get out. It's always difficult to get out. But I think, and then also to bring together all the ecosystem there and put added value on it. The purpose is also to bring in universities, to bring in the gaming schools that we have, very famous gaming schools in Flanders, to do research and development on site there, to do also development for the region, because people who know the Riedel region, it's not the most, most brilliant area in our country. So if you can, with a lot of potential, so if you can combine this with a development program for the region itself, I think it will be very tough for governments in the future to stop the project.
Thank you very much.
The basis for it.
Now, we are concluding this panel discussion. Do we agree that we are hopeful for the future of events, Thomas?
Yes, I'm super hopeful. And also if I see the audience and this event here, it makes me hopeful, because it's not just about, always high tech and the very expensive stuff. I mean, look at that event, a very solid setup on one hand, but when I came in, I saw these overhead projectors. I'm not sure whether you all saw them, but someone had a great idea and it caused emotions, because I was immediately stepped back to my time at school, and that little emotion was something was touching. And whoever had that idea, probably the person is in the room, I can only say well done. And I'm super positive and I'm grateful, and thank you for having me.
You're welcome, Philippe.
Only opportunity. If you see the amount of different disciplines that touch events today, if you hear the stories from the other panel members, if you take a look at our company, we went from 10 people to over 200 people, have disciplines from people that make food to fashion designers, to people that even have the space to think about the metaverse. I only see opportunity in the future.
Thomas?
If I'm being asked what my job is, I always say I want to make something that's very traditional, future-proof. So my outlook is between 2030 and 2040. So without being hopeful, that wouldn't make sense. So super hopeful, and it's a land of opportunity today, and we just need to grasp it.
Okay, Marco?
Well, I came here on purpose just to share my optimism about the fact that we love what we do, and we provide experience to people, and that's one of the best jobs in the world.
Okay, Mr. Jambon, are you going to help us to make it future-proof?
At least for the next 4 months. And then we will see. We have elections in June, and so for the next and afterwards we'll see.
Okay, thank you so much, Jambon, Thomas, Marco, Thomas, and Philippe for this panel discussion, and thank you for the audience for your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.